Hello to all of you. We're going to get started here. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Zoning In on Children's Spaces, Engaging Your Youngest Visitors. I am Janet Nelson, the Director of Industry Relations for Demco, and I will be moderating today's session. Before we get started, I just wanted to go through some housekeeping details, and then I will introduce our speaker and she'll get her presentation rolling. On your screens, you should see a chat box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and if you have a question or you're having any type of technical issue, please feel free to type something in there, and we'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as we can. We will pause in the middle of the presentation and at the end of the session for questions. If something comes up during the session that you would like clarification on or want to respond to, I encourage you to type it in, and we will be compiling the thoughts and questions as they come in and can address them at the break, and actually at the end of the session as well. If we don't get to your question during the session, we'll be sure to get all of those answered and posted with the recorded webcast after the event. There is also specific contact information available for Kim or myself that you should be seeing on the screen right now, so you can feel free to email us separately if you have specific questions, but keep in mind that we won't be checking those emails until after the session. We will be using Twitter as well, and the hashtag that we're using today is hashtag DemcoKids. You should be able to see that hashtag on the side of your screen in the chat box as well as on the main screen at the moment. That feed will be monitored as well for questions and comments. We know that you may be watching in a group today, so just for fun, we want to get a feel for how many people are participating. And you should see a quick poll up on your screen just to find out how many people are watching from your computer. I believe that's all I have on housekeeping, so let's move on to introductions. As I mentioned, I am Janet Nelson, the Director of Industry Relations for Demco, and I'm the moderator today. Demco is always interested in how we can better serve the needs of our customers, and we have discovered that these webinars that we've been hosting have been a really great way for us to do that. With today's session, early literacy has taken on a renewed interest in libraries and schools, and along with that, we found that our customers are rethinking their designated spaces for children to make them more engaging spaces that help facilitate and really ignite that learning process. In addition, the different needs of children from 0 to 12 are being recognized, and people are realizing that they can better meet those needs through more of a zoned approach in their designs. Today's presentation is going to walk you through ways that you can accomplish this in your library. I'm very pleased that Kim Bowen-Cohen can be with us as our speaker today. Kim is an experienced librarian, consultant, and author with a broad background in libraries. She is the principal consultant of Kimberly Bowen and Associates, a library consulting firm based outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. And Kim has consulted with hundreds of public school and academic libraries in the U.S. and abroad, specializing in facilities planning and design and 21st century library services. Her clients range from small rural libraries to large urban facilities and everything in between. Kim is a Library Journal recognized mover and shaker, has published 3 books and numerous journal articles, and is a frequent speaker at state and national conferences. Now, at this point, I am going to change the presenter over to Kim. And so, Kim, we're going to put the controls into your capable hands, and you can get started when you're ready.
Thank you, Janet. Can you hold on just to make sure everything comes up okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So we're switching over to Kim's screen.
Okay. And we should be rolling to go.
Perfect.
Can you see everything?
We see it all here.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you, Janet, and welcome everyone. I'm very excited to be here today to be able to talk to you about children's space design. Years ago, when I first got into libraries, I was figuring out the other day, 25 whole years ago, it's like how time flies. One of the first things that I was in charge of was teen services, and also had an active participation with preteens. And over the course of my career, have worked in public libraries and school libraries, and now also have 2 stepdaughters, one age 9 and one age 11. And we're constantly looking at libraries, and I'm getting their input from them and their friends about, well, how do we do things better? And I know that there's so many great things out there today that just can really connect kids with books, connect kids with technology, help build skills. And essentially, you know, I think that this is the future of libraries, is having thriving children's service in space. Public libraries can really thrive. They've already done great things over the years, but I think even with a little tweaking that they can be even more dynamic and relevant in communities. Today, what I want to focus on with our short time together, as any of you who know me, I am usually a talker, and I could go on probably on this topic for hours. So I've tried to just kind of hone in on the few key elements, and as Janet said, I'd be happy to answer questions on the break, and then we'll do a summary for all of those questions we don't get to today. I'll actually type those up and respond to everybody. But at any rate, what we're going to just do over the next several minutes is go through kind of the 5 key areas that I outlined for you that I think are really hot and important when looking at children's space design. And when I talk children's spaces, I'm typically talking space design for ages 0 through 12, so early literacy, preschool age, young school age children, and preteens. 5 areas that we're going to talk about. Number 1, and probably, in my opinion, the most important thing you can do is get community input, so I'll give you some tips on that. We'll talk about some other planning ideas and giving you some suggestions for what I call proper planning and trying to make it as easy and as streamlined as possible for you to give you good substance behind your space redesign. Then we'll talk about zoning space, which is something that I kind of put out there years ago that I've been gradually moving forward, but really trying to broaden the appeal of children's spaces and service to those beyond the very, very young, and really serving through age 12 in a way that's appropriate and engaging to them. So we'll talk about the concept of what I call zoning space. And then just a few things on creating that age-appropriate look and feel. And I want to get into some interactivity and creating flexible space, because the interactives are such a key part of today's public and school libraries. So at any rate, before I get started here, I do want to mention, because I said public libraries earlier, but do keep in mind that a lot of these concepts are very applicable for schools. I've worked with several schools over the years, and the ones that I am really impressed by are thinking outside the box to include some of these things. So you'll see school libraries and public in some of these images, so just keep your minds open and hopefully let everything sink in. First thing, again, let's talk about community input. Couple key things. This usually is the thing that intimidates people the most, and I'm not sure why, even though you're really dealing with kids, and usually the younger ones aren't so intimidating. But, you know, holding focus groups with your older children, even, you know, your 9-year-olds, even 8-year-olds I've had in focus groups before, up through your 12-year-olds, and then having groups of parents and caregivers, really showing them the possibilities. Like I tell everybody, when I do focus groups, I do a PowerPoint or some kind of other visual to show people the possibilities so they can react and comment. Otherwise, they're not going to know what the options are. They're only going to know the traditional library that they've seen for years or the environment that they've been in. So you have to expose them to the possibilities and let them react. And it's a wonderful thing for children and for adults. And you guys can borrow this PowerPoint if you want to, and then just tweak it and, you know, make it your own and show people some of the things that are going on. So you just have to contact me, and I'd be happy to share things with you. One thing is also important, in addition to the different age groups, make sure the kids and the types of parents you're involving, variety of users as well as non-users. Get people that are, you know, get some of the athletes. The kids are, you know, maybe some more bookwormy, some that are, you know, maybe the artsy kids. I mean, get a variety of kids in there And that is usually the most fun and telling of everything, of anything, excuse me, that you do. Also, same with parents. Get people in the library, get parents that might not use the library. Now, talk to homeschoolers, perhaps. Some might use it, some might not. Some parents, you know, they might not even be thinking about the library because they don't understand the full scope of service. So get a variety of non-users and get outside the library when you do this. Don't require everyone to come to a focus group or to talk to people. Don't make them just come to the library. Get out into the community and meet them where they are, because that's going to give you your best results. And as you get going, you know, just don't do this once. Make sure it's kind of an ongoing thing, that you continually get feedback and input so you can tweak it to be the best it can be. And I love to show this slide. It just illustrates, this was a middle school project which had some pre-teens in it. And I just love that when they opened this middle school library, they talked about the fact that we actually had them participate in the design focus groups, and the title of the article is, "Oh my gosh, they listened." So it really means a lot to kids when you are asking them and you know, having them participate in this. So I can't emphasize this stage enough. So that would be you know, number one, improper planning. Also, some of the more boring kind of things, you know, all the statistics and all that stuff, I kind of want to get out of the way, but this is an essential kind of analysis and data kind of gathering phase as part of your planning that you have to do along with these focus groups in order to figure out what it is that you need to do, what's important to the people that are going to come into this library. Look at your community, look at your student data, and develop and then take your feedback from all the focus groups and figure out what your priorities are. Then figure out, hey, here's our priorities for service. Then how do we make that physical change to make that service really thrive and just appeal to people? So form, following, function. Don't just start buying furniture and painting walls. Really have a plan so you're making good decisions. And it's also going to help you with resource allocation. You know, how much money do you have? Where are your priorities? How, you know, where should your monies go? And a lot of times my clients are phasing things, even if they're big libraries. It's okay, phase one we're going to do this year, and next year we're going to add this. So, you know, it's a continual process. You know, I mentioned something, you know, about the demographic analysis. So, for instance, with public libraries, this might be a cool study to do. Just kind of see how your ages break down. So less than 5 for that early literacy zone that we'll talk about, kind of the, well, it says 5 to 9, but, you know, you kind of got that 6 to 9 maybe area. And then 10 to 12 or 9 to 12. There's so much overlap in those two areas, but that's how typically you can get that information broken out in demographic studies and figure out what is your population of kids compared to the rest of your population. And then I always look at, okay, well, 19%, and if I was looking at this particular library at 1 square foot per capita, which is today a reasonable amount to build to. Library back in the 80s used to build, oh gosh, huge spaces at, you know, 1.8, 2 square feet per capita, some of them. I mean, huge spaces that we really don't need anymore. But you want to look at what is that 1 square foot per capita. So my children's space or children's library, well, should be about 24,000 square feet for this size community, 19% potentially of the overall square footage. And that's just, you know, just a way to kind of get a sense. Doesn't mean you're going to have to plan a 24,000 square foot children's area, but it kind of gets you a starting point. And then, you know, one of the other things that's really important is looking at that collection, because I mentioned we don't need to build these huge spaces anymore, and the reason it is because collections are going to change over time. We used to build for collections to grow and grow and grow and grow, and now I think we're at a point where they're going to stay with active weeding and keeping things circulating. The collections are going to stay pretty steady, or even physical collections could decrease over time as more and more things go to an e-format and become more readily available. So that's why I made that comment about the space and the 1 square foot per capita. Looking at the slide here, I know it's a lot to kind of take in, and I'll be sharing a basic collection analysis worksheet with you as part of the handouts for today's session. But essentially, you want to go through your collection and find out, okay, how many new materials do I have? What are my holdings? What's my circulation on that? What kind of turnover am I seeing? You know, what are my picture books? And divide it by those different groups, those different zones of how you would lay out the space. So early literacy, picture books, board books, easy readers. You know, how are things turning over? Because that's going to be telling. It's going to show you where you really need to lead and maybe even focus developing, or when we talk about some of these shelving options, some of the stuff you're going to have to lead in order to get it down so you can better merchandise it, so you can actually move these items out into the public hands. I mean, ideally, I would say I want everything to circulate, you know, 40 to 50% in circulation at one time. I want whatever I'm buying and spending valuable money on, I want it to keep going out to people and not just sit on the shelves. So this whole collection thing, I think, is key. And like I said, it's not the most exciting thing to do, but I'm happy to help any of you kind of go through this process if you need, you know, more hands-on with this. And it's really easy, and hopefully my worksheet will make it easier for you. But this is a really good starting point. So essentially now, before we get into zoning, let's just recap here for a second. So we have a planning process where we've done focus group and direct input from our users and non-users. So we've gathered all that data, and we've also done some analysis. We've looked at demographics, we looked at the people that we're serving from a data perspective, and we're looking at our collection and our usage and you know, going even into program usage and all of those statistics and data that we collect all the time, looking at that and what's really happening, not just guessing at those things. That will help you start developing your plan of service and what you need to focus on. So then essentially we get into, okay, you set your priorities, and then we look at, okay, we want to pretty much, you know, no matter what the priorities, we want to then look at our physical space by zone and then start figuring out, okay, how do we best serve preschool ages 0 to 4, 0 to 5? And again, this is rough and it could change for, you know, this number and age can change for each of you depending on how you serve your community. Young school age, again, 5 or 6 up through 8. Preteens starting at 9 these days and going up through 12. I know some of you might only serve up to 11. So again, that general concept is there. You can see in the image here, it shows a space plan, Charlotte Mecklenburg's Imagine On Children's Space. And we just looked at kind of zoning it and better laying it out for the different age groups. And this is something that any of you can do. You don't have to have a fancy graphics program or a consultant to sit here and kind of say, okay, this is where the best location would be for early literacy, and this is how much space we need, and so on. So simple exercise like that. This is another example. It's a really fun project. I've been working on a couple branches in Las Vegas, Clark County, and this is one of their older branches that had a lot of issues as far as space goes. And I just wanted to show it to you because we ended up, hopefully, this just ended, so hopefully this is what's going to happen in the future. But we converted a meeting space into an upper level children's area because the original space for kids was just that bottom kind of W section, and it wasn't much space at all. So we evaluated the whole square footage, the whole thing, the whole library, and then said, okay, we really need more space for kids. This is an important thing. And then we're changing the meeting space into an actual upper level, flexible children's area with a stage that was in there that they built, when stages were hot in libraries. They're converting that into a flexible program space. So, this is just another concept. It shows you that you can work with things sometimes that space that you don't necessarily think of right off the bat. And we actually, in this space, if you look out into the hallway, there's a kind of a little semicircular desk that that's where we're putting the main staff point. So it's actually out in the hall, straddling both areas. So again, just kind of an out of the box idea that I thought was fun to show you guys. Here's just a few visuals of some of the libraries that have done some basic things with zoning. You can see in the upper picture there's an early literacy space with a lot of interactives, which we'll talk more about interactives at the end of the presentation. But trying to pull collection and teaching valuable skills to kids and just kind of making the most of your space and creating energy and skill building. And then you'll see in the bottom left-hand picture, it's a parenting area. Again, more interactives in there, different size furnishings, so parents can work together and have a conversation, but still keeping an eye on their kids. And then this library also has a tween area. And this is the Welsh Family Children's Wing at the James V. Brown Library in Pennsylvania. So this was a really interesting project, and be happy to get you more information on it if anyone is interested. Here's a small redesign, something that was on a really limited budget. Again, they have an early literacy space. The bottom left-hand corner, although maybe not as jazzy as some, it is still a preteen area just for preteen use, so they're not kind of mixed in with the younger kids. And they, great things with color. I mean, the look and feel of the space is very warm and friendly. They've done a lot with face-out merchandising and just, a very simple, low-budget example. One of the other things with zoning, I should say, in addition to age group, I like to make people really aware of programming space and how valuable and important that is in children's areas. One of my clients right now is actually taking and redoing their existing children's space and weeding out a lot of the collection. And this was a directive from the public to get rid of a lot of the stuff that just sat there because they wanted a separate program area. So we're doing a multifunctional program space in this new library, or in this renovation. And it's really exciting, and people are looking forward to this transition. Again, you have to make sure it's going to serve the variety of ages. A lot of times you're going to integrate technology. You have to think about what kinds of materials, like flooring and so on, because when you get into this stuff, you might be doing craft programs in there or story times. You can see in this floor plan, the very upper picture there, it's a lot of different geometric shapes. That's actually a children's program room in a project that's in the works that is a multifunctional room. So it can be used for crafts, story time, all ages, and then it is converted when it's not used for programs into kind of a gross motor skill building interactivity room. So it has furnishings and things you can climb on. Parents can bring their kids in there. They can engage in different ways with each other. They have several interactives planned for this space. So again, multifunctional, not just one purpose, but open all the time, something constantly going on in there. Another project we're working on now, we're an existing space, rethinking what are we going to do with this space? We have what we have square footage wise. You see the circle on the top of the slide that we're suggesting be an early literacy kind of interaction center with lots of interactives right adjacent to all the picture books and everything and the early literacy computers. And then in the back of the space at the bottom of your screen you see another semicircle. Again, another example of carving out program space by weeding the collection and looking towards what is necessary and vital for this library to thrive, and they need separate children's space. So we'll carve that out in existing space. And just a few visuals that I thought would be fun to show you. I mean, the thing is when you print these out, at least you'll have them as a reference. You can see, different flooring options and design, and I mean, there's so many different ways you can go with the look and feel on this, but it just shows you that it can be a really great thing, and you keep flexibility in mind, and you'll be good to go. We will be, as part of the handouts for this session, sharing with you some children's space checklists on zoning divided by each of the age groups that I put together for Demco. And Janet will be providing those to you after the fact, but I wanted to put the URL up here just in case you needed it. It gets a little complicated to get to each of the PDFs, so we thought it would just be easier to send them to you. So on that note, I'm just going to take a pause here. I know that was a lot of information, I'm sure, for you to digest. As I told you, I could talk for hours on this stuff. But I want to know, was there anything that was confusing, any questions out there that we want to clarify or talk about here before we move on to look and feel of space?
Okay, we do have several questions that have come in, Kim. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 2 of those now, and then we'll hold any of the rest of them until the end, and then we'll get through as many as we can. And then anything that doesn't get answered, we do a complete question log at the end with all the answers, and you'll get an email that includes that. So the first question here is, how does one identify non-users for input?
That's my most popular question, and it's such a great question. This is what I do with my clients, okay? When we do focus groups, no matter who we're focusing on, we get key stakeholders that are involved in the project. So it could be your staff, it could be board members, if you're in a school, it could be the principal and the number of teachers. And you have each of them identify 10 people that they think use the library that would be good participants, willing participants, and you have them identify 10 people that they know pretty much would never set foot in the library, don't use the library regularly. Schools, this is really easy for people to identify. Public libraries, people look towards their friends, people at their church, and just people that they socialize with or know outside of the library, and then you get these lists compiled of all these people. But it's really just a collaborative process, and it's a brainstorming process, but you have to involve a lot of your key stakeholders that are helping in the planning process to identify the people.
Okay, I think that's really helpful, Kim. Especially, I've heard a lot lately about the power of 10.
Yeah.
So your suggestion with 10 people is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, one other question here. What suggestions do you have for a small library with a teen space that is merged with the children's space? I don't know if you're going to get to this in a minute, or if you want to take this one now.
Well, it's an interesting question. It's tough because I currently have a client who is struggling with this herself. They have a little tiny teen area, and it's right at the beginning of the children's area, and it's just not conducive to good service for both those age groups. I mean, especially because you're trying to serve so many different developmental needs and social, and oh my goodness. So one of my clients in Frankfort, Indiana, a few years back opened a teen center. They had the same situation, small library in an old Carnegie building with an addition off the back. Everything merged, teens and kids in one. Well, we evaluated, we did our study on demographics, we looked at needs and wants in the community, where did the priorities need to be, what's bringing or will be bringing people in to the library, and we evaluated that there was part of the building that was converted into a teen center, and it went from this little corner with like maybe a kid or two stopping in once in a while to actually grab a book out of there to this thriving center that kids are flocking to every day after school. So with the small libraries, I have to say, and not knowing your situation, I'd have to look at a lot of things, but you have to see if teen services can be a big deal and be really important to your community, you have to think about reevaluating all the space and kind of moving things around. I don't recommend at all having teen space and children's space. I think it's really challenging for all the ages. I think it's intimidating to the real little ones, and it's off-putting to the older kids. So, you know, this is a question that if you have a specific problem, you can certainly email me after the fact, and there's a lot more information I'll need to know to give you better advice, but that's kind of my experience with having that situation.
Thank you, Kim. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the rest of your presentation, and then we'll come back to some additional questions at the end.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Janet. Okay, so age-appropriate look and feel. And I say age-appropriate because trying to get people to understand that when you create a look and feel for your library, it needs to be kid-friendly. And I'm not just saying friendly to those 6 and under or 7 and under. I'm also talking about those kids that are, you know, preteens, upper elementary, who have very different aesthetics and different things appeal to them. So, you know, I'm not a big fan of the children's area with the theme. I just hear too many complaints from older kids about it, about themes that might appear babyish or just, it's not appealing and drawing them in. And I think themes have a problem of really dating out. Here's so many of my clients, oh my gosh, we've got to get rid of this. We've had it for years. We're so sick of looking at it. So I think if you can, and this is, you know, more details in those guidelines that we'll post as a handout, but if you can really think about it as more of a feel and appealing with color and furnishings and just the vibe and creating a warmth with some different options that really pull kids in, I think that's the look and feel that we need to get to with our libraries. And I know my girls go into a lot of children's spaces, and it's unfortunate that so many times that they just kind of get this crunched up face and are like, I don't know about this, and they're just kind of really disappointed. A lot of times they're gravitating to the teen area, and kids today are a lot different than even when I grew up. I mean, they have much more sophisticated tastes, I think, a lot of different, you know, aesthetics, as I mentioned. I think that sticking with color and really doing something like what we see in this image, something that's more broad, something that just really engages. So even if the little ones can't read, it's still an engaging, interesting looking space. And you know, you got to say, how many times do you have a 4-year-old complain about the aesthetics of your library? They really don't care. But you know, 9, 11, 10, 11-year-olds, you could be pretty outspoken and opinionated about it. Here's a whole different look. Again, I don't think there's one right way or wrong way to carry out something that's successful. This is just really off the wall, but I absolutely adore it just because of the color. This is in Europe, so you know, we probably look at this and most American librarians would freak because of the climbing and everything. But I love how it draws kids into the collection. And it's not complicated. It's a simple idea, but it's engaging and fun. And again, with this is more of a preteen, older kids area. Just a simple way to, you know, give them a place to go and simple art and that warm and inviting atmosphere. Of course, in the U.S., we won't get away with this either because we can't have an open platform like that. Because of building code, you'd have to have this kind of, you know, railings and so on. But still, you could make it work. And again, it's inspirational. Maybe you'll have a better idea. Looking at other things and just display and color and you just look around you, not only to library environments, but retail environments and stores that might not have books, stores that have other things that are pulling kids in. What is it they do that makes them feel welcome? One of the big things with look and feel, and I think how a children's space works, is by rethinking how we've done shelving for so long. Keeping those shelves low, I hate to see children's areas with anything above a 60, maybe a 66-inch shelf. 72-inch on the perimeter, I feel fairly comfortable with that, but big tall shelves in the middle, how do the kids engage? Adults barely can engage with big tall shelves in the adult area. That's one of my #1 complaints from adults. So why would we do this for children who are going to be much shorter and not really be able to reach? And we want to pull them in. So again, things like flip-through shelving and bins. 42 inches is ideal. You can have these on casters. You can have them not on casters, but where the kids can actually see the covers, they're at their level, they're not all spine out, they can see them and interact with them. And going to flip-through picture book shelving in libraries, there's several people out there that have done this for years, and there's a post on my blog too if you're interested in more info on this, but they've been increasing their circulation 30 to 40% by just going from spine out to flip through. So I just would highly recommend this transition for you. Keeping the older kids shelving low, doing as much face out on those as possible, making sure your aisle widths are appropriate, and nice, clear, user-friendly, simple signage. Graphical is a plus for those kids that aren't reading yet or have difficulty reading. All these things, very simple things to think about that we haven't done traditionally. Here's another picture of a unit. This is a little bit higher. This one could get a little bit more capacity maybe than some of the other ones we saw. To kind of help you along, in a minute here I'll show you a spreadsheet that I'm going to have Janet send to all of you that kind of gives you an overview of what kind of flip-through picture book shelving is out there and what the capacities are. I think this will be very helpful. It's only 4 different types, but there's a lot of vendors out there that can do this for you. This I just wanted to show for inspiration. I love, again, the different ways to shelf, keeping board books really low so the kids that are using them can reach them and pull them out. And the seating incorporated with the shelving to create spots so they can read. Again, simple things. And here's just a reference to one of the libraries. This is in Frankfort Library in Illinois. Previously, I was talking about Frankfort Library in Indiana that did the teen space conversion from their children's space, but this is Frankfort, Illinois. And they've been using flip-through shelving for years, and as you can see, 2005, 2006, they showed a significant increase in circulation. And I constantly hear this from a few of my clients have already implemented this. Things have gone through the roof. They notice the kids interacting with it more. And as I mentioned, here is just a screenshot of the handout that Janet will be sending to you. Shows you 4 different kinds of flip-through shelving. Again, not the only options that are out there, but it gives you a few ideas so you can kind of get a sense of how much space you'd need and how many items each unit will hold and all that good stuff. So hopefully that will help you. Here are just a couple examples of, creating shelving and merchandising that's more user-friendly for older kids. The bottom slide, graphic novels that are all face out with nice, clear, simple signage. And the one in the upper right, all their manga and graphic novels on one separate high-interest shelving unit that just, in the units on casters. It can go anywhere. It can move from day to day. That is something else that definitely is a plus and gets materials into kids' hands. Furniture, just want to touch on this. We could go on forever on furniture. There's a lot of cool stuff out on the market right now, as you can see in just these 5 slides that I show on the right. There's so many variety of sizes and chairs that come in, smaller sizes and adult sizes and styles. You can have a children's, atmosphere that is very unique and different. It doesn't have to be all cookie cutter. And the same as the library down the road. I think it's important again to really think about age appropriateness here, as you would when you're thinking about the overall look and feel of your space and the zoning, because a chair that appeals or is appropriate in size for a 3 or 4-year-old is not good for an 8-year-old or an 11-year-old. They're going to be sitting in more adult size seating. And flexibility and allowing the older ones to be able to move things around and create social groups and so on. Even, things like the Flippin' Nest chair that you see in the middle there. It's just a computer seat that you could flip up and you can kind of stack them all into each other and you could roll them out of the way. If that's a great solution, if you need to keep your space very flexible, if you have a small library and you need to clear it out to do programming in your children's room, you want to get things that are flexible and easy to move so you can create that multifunctional space. Just a couple vendors. I put these in here. I'm not going to talk in depth about any of these. They're more as placeholders for you when you get the copy of the presentation, so you'll have references to different vendors to look at if any of you are looking for some good furniture options. Palmieri, I love them. They're doing great things, really forward-thinking. So they're a great one. Agati's been doing great things for years. They have a very different look and feel. Igloo Play. I've used some of this product. I don't know it all extensively, and I think Janet has shared with me that some of it, depending on what you're getting, you have to be wary of quality and durability, as you would with anything, but especially for children. But some of my clients are absolutely in love with several of these products. So really cool, interesting, out-of-the-box stuff there. TMC, another great one. We've seen this for years, but still, in addition to their more traditional things, they have been doing a lot to think out of the box and provide new products, and they even have interactives now for kids, and it's a great resource. Fresco, always one to take a look at, and Westco would be another one. So again, lots of different types of things, and not all inclusive of what's out there, but I just wanted to get you a few resources to get you started. Now, interactive and flexible spaces. So I say, okay, we're going to get to this, we're going to get to this. So the one thing that I think that is very different about successful children's spaces in the 21st century is interactives. The inclusion of things that are teaching skills, gross motor skills, fine motor skills, social skills, problem solving, all these things that help kids grow up to be healthy adults. And I think for several years now there's been a huge focus on early literacy, and we've traditionally, a lot of us, have put different interactives in for the under 5 crowd. But this really extends to all kids, and it could be so many different things. I think the one thing is when you're doing this, as you can see, when I just listed gross motor skill, fine motor skill, you have to kind of figure out what your focus is, what are you trying to encourage, and what's your mission for what you want to accomplish. And then think of that, and then look at different options and think about the different age groups and what's appropriate and engaging for each of those age groups that would support their needs, and not only their developmental needs, but even recreational needs. And then connecting everyone. I mean, that's the whole thing, connecting kids to one another, connecting kids to the collection, and then, you know, drawing them in maybe to programming through some of these things. Here's, you know, just a slide to show you some of the things out there. My goodness gracious, there are so many things. I have a slide coming up that gives you a list of vendors, so if you want to start taking a peek at things. I love to show the one at the top. This was submitted, these images were submitted by Laura Rosenthal, and she's the head of youth services at Crystal Lake Public Library in Illinois. But she was so excited that they got this. It's a like Rube Goldberg was a Rube Goldberg kind of thing, right? Where you can kind of make you set up the maze and the tunnels for the ball to do this and that and the other thing, and it's called Motion by Design. And they thought that it was going to be used by really little kids. Now you can see in the picture, there's some preteens and young school-age kids engaging in this, and they were just ecstatic about it. They also have, you know, the train table and, you know, the early literacy computers, all of those things being ways to engage and increase interactivity. Again, another shot of some of the things that are out there that that people are doing, things to incorporate. For the older kids in particular, I think some of the best things that you can do are the simplest and most cost-effective. Whiteboard walls or end panels that have whiteboard on them. Probably stay away from chalk in children's room because it gets a little bit messy. But even, you know, magnetic paint here on the left, that's my 9-year-old stepdaughter. We had a pillar in this room, and we did, you know, magnetic paint, and she had magnetic poetry that she was just going and creating these poems or sentences with. I mean, so simple, and it's just a wonder that we don't see this type of thing more. Even displays and engaging in culture and having the kids provide their own displays or bringing in things to help educate them. But the Pez dispenser display, I mean, that's pretty cool and obviously engaging. Art is huge. Kids, focus groups, they talk to me a lot about art, wanting to put in their art and, you know, show their art. So you have space for that. The Chicopee Public Library in Massachusetts rolled the thing out on the right hand image. That's in their teen area, but I think it's Sparkeology's Wall-E, it's called, and it's just basically a display where you can hang notebooks, spiral-bound notebooks. The kids can do art on them, and you can just hang them on there, and they can continually draw and change it. So a really super idea that they came up with, and this would be perfect for an engaging thing for older kids in the children's area. And you can get really high tech, super high tech. You know, there's lots of cool digital interactives out there where you can project down on the floor from a projector on the ceiling, and motion activated stuff. And, you know, some people, you know, would really want to embrace this and try to roll this out at their library. It might not be for everybody, but the stuff is out there, and there's just a couple resources that you might want to take a look at. The other thing about engaging space, I want to include Service Point, because Service Point is your key interactive item in your space. And downsizing those desks, making small, more mobile service points with signage that's so easy and unintimidating, and just places that you can be and quickly get to, that the kids can come up to and not feel intimidated or overwhelmed by. But I think this is a key interactive item. Long are the days, and you've probably heard this, I know you've probably heard it from me before and others, but long gone are those days of big, huge desks, and especially in children's space. Here's your list of interactives, some of the vendors that are out there that that I've used, that others that I know have used. So I just wanted to get that in your handout when you get it in case any of you want to research more on that particular topic. Technology and creation space, it's also an interactive, it's a programmatic element for your library. It's building 21st century skills and tech literacy in kids of all ages. And it's really about, providing equipment and space for kids to be able to create information instead of just consuming it. So, going out there and coming to the library to think, I need to do a video for school, I want to do an audio file, or I'm doing some self-publishing. All of that stuff is such a great collaborative with the school district. It's a great opportunity for grants that helps foster strategic thinking, and it does really move the library into the 21st century. And a lot of people have been doing this for years. It used to be kind of one of those things that like only Charlotte Mecklenburg did, but libraries of all sizes and budgets are really rolling out the service. And to be honest with you, it could be there for your kids, but it's also a great resource for your adults. I love this image. This was sent to me by Barrington Public Library in Illinois. But they have iPads in their children's room now. You can see they're connected to girls collaborating on one iPad, collaborative computing, and new ways to provide computing that aren't necessarily all hardwired desktop computers. That's really where it's at. And it also is nice because it gives you a lot more flexibility about what you can do with the space. I want to show you this too. We got a few more slides here and then we can get to some more questions, but I love this image. And I just like to look at things that inspire me that I can share with people like you that hopefully inspire you too. But I know if I walked into a children's library and this is kind of the atmosphere that I saw, that would be very engaging. My girls saw this picture and they just absolutely loved it. Other things too with technology. I mean, it's simple things, Mom. I shouldn't say simple because it might not be simple to a lot of people, but having a self-check in your children's space, oh my goodness, kids go crazy for it. I remember even back when I first started in libraries where we were using the old Gaylord machine and we didn't have anything electronic, we used to let kids check out all the time. It was like the highlight. And they still love to scan their own books and come behind the desk. But engaging them in the self-check process and with the parent in the upper left-hand corner working with them. And it's just a fun thing that gives a new kind of perspective to people, and it brings a new image to the library. Before I go on to the last slide, just one more thing. Remembering that we didn't talk a lot about computing. I touched on a few things, but having early literacy workstations in your early literacy area, like what you see in the bottom right-hand corner, I think that is key. Also, having separate collaborative computing space for your older kids, whether it be laptops, desktops, iPads, I don't care what it is you're using, but making sure the space is appropriate that two people, and sometimes even more, can engage, whether it's a parent or an adult with the child or two kids working on something together. Of course, encourage responsible behavior, but I think this is really necessary in today's society. And lastly, I believe this is my last slide before we go into questions. Miscellaneous things that you might not think about just to keep in the front of your mind. Tackable surface. Children's people love tackable surface, and there's a reason. There's people, maybe you're hanging up artwork or there's something that you need to post. But I think making sure that that is attractive, that even if there's nothing on the wall, it still looks good. We did a Forbo, wall or floor covering on a wall in New Jersey. And that looked amazing because it looked attractive even when they didn't have student art and things hanging on it. So there's cool solutions for that out there that you just don't have to do a bulletin board. Family restrooms, don't forget about those. If you're in a situation with a new library building, stroller parking and spaces for parents to be able to accommodate that type of thing for programming, and cubbies and storage for backpacks and things like that. Just a couple tips that along the way kind of learned that, yeah, these might be important things that we have to think about that we don't normally think about. So at any rate, as I told you, lots of information swished into our time here, but we have a few minutes left in the session, and Janet, if you want to give me a few more questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Sure. Just real quickly, I just want to make sure that people realize a lot of the vendors that Kim talked about today, many of those are available through Demco, or if some of you aren't aware, we also have a division of our organization called Demco Interiors, and so we're far more than what you see in just the catalog. So a lot of those things, if you contact our Demco Interiors division, and you can get to demcointeriors.com, you can find some of our staff that can help you locate many of those items. So if you have questions about that, that'd be a great way to do that. And then in addition, we had a lot of people asking about school library examples. And what we'll do, I know that Kim probably has some of those, but we also have a lot of those to get out as well. So if people wanted specific images on that, you can email myself and Kim, and we can pull together more school examples for you.
And I showed several today. Unfortunately, Janet, I just haven't come across a lot of really great examples, and it makes me feel sad. But I think, I think the examples that illustrate a lot of the things we talked about, I think schools need to kind of push themselves forward in some of these respects, because, but like you said, I can come up with a few that would be good examples from the presentation, and maybe we can come up with a couple good ones together.
That sounds great. Okay, we are running short on time, so we don't have a lot of time for our questions, but like I said, we will get a log out. But one of the questions that came up that I'm sure is probably on a lot of people's minds is organizing books in the flip-through shelving. How do you go about doing that?
Well, I have a lot of clients that are doing this or moving into this, and everybody wants to do it different. And to be honest with you, I think it's really up to you. I have some people that organize it by letter. Some people do a community, so they keep like all the truck books or heavy machine books together, or as seen on TV books. All those popular things that kids are always coming in for. I think I showed a couple pictures of those, but I'm willing, if someone has specifics, we can talk again offline. But I think you can really do whatever you want to do. A lot of it's just going to be, you have to rethink how you process, because you're going to want to have whatever it is recognized by the cover of the book instead of the spine. And you got to be committed to not really freaking out about things not being in order, because again, remember, the collection's for the kids, and think about the age group that it's focusing on. It needs to be easy for them to access and find things. And, it might take the staff a little bit longer, but the people that I've talked to, and again, go to my blog and look at the video that's posted there on this type of shelving and a couple of the other links, and hear from people that are doing it, what a great thing it was, and why they feel that it was such an important move. So again, feel free to email me after the presentation. We can always talk more about that.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap up because we're out of time, but thank you, Kim. We appreciate so much your insight and your sharing on some of the tips and things that we can do to take a little bit different approach to children's spaces so that we better meet the needs of those young young customers that will be our future taxpayers as well. We hope that you were able to take away a few things to try in your libraries, and if you have other questions, of course, feel free to contact us. There's some great discussion, and we appreciate all of you sharing your time with us. You will be receiving an email following this presentation. You will probably get it on Friday, and that will include a link to this webcast. So if you missed something or just wanted to review or you want to share it with some of your colleagues, you'll have that available. And there will be another email that follows up that will have the slides and some of the materials that Kim talked about, and that will probably come to you next week. So you can look for that along with the answers to the questions that we weren't able to get to today. In addition to that, in that first email, you will receive a survey, so that will let us know how we did today. We're just getting these things started out, so your feedback is very, very important to us because we want to make these sessions better and better for the future. Feel free to contact or to comment on topics that you'd like more information on or speakers that you'd like to hear from, so we can consider building some of those things into the schedule as we move forward. We're already getting some really great feedback on our previous webinars, and we're hoping to use that in our future programming, and I'm sure we can get that from you. We do have another webinar coming up. It'll be towards the end of November. Tom Linfield from the Madison Community Foundation will be presenting Transforming Libraries Through Collaboration, Collections, and Endowment Building. So some of you were asking about grants today too, and we'll get you some information on that. But you know, this is a really great partnership that is a very unique and effective partnership that's been linking some Wisconsin libraries with a community partner that helps to build both collections and programming that can be more effectively used across a number of different libraries. You can go to the Demco website to register for that, and we hope you'll consider joining us for that. Additional webinars will be announced as the schedule develops. So thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate your participation, and we hope to see you again. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.